I paid off his student loans. Every single cent, $63,000. I did it quietly over 18 months, skipping vacations, selling my car, working weekends. I wanted him to finish his master's debt-free. He didn't thank me. He didn't even tell his parents it was me. And the night I asked him to hold me because I just lost my grandmother, he said, "I think you should sleep on the couch tonight. I need the whole bed." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. He turned over and closed his eyes. "My name is Elena. I'm 31. I work in medical billing for a hospital network in Portland, Oregon. I'm good at my job, detail-oriented, reliable, the kind of person who catches mistakes before they cost people money. I've always been like that. Careful, thoughtful, someone who notices what needs to be done and does it without needing applause. I met Daniel when I was 25. He was 27, finishing up his bachelor's degree late because he'd switched majors twice. He was charming in that slightly disheveled, overly earnest way, always talking about potential and big ideas but never quite executing. I found it endearing at first. I thought he just needed support, stability, someone who believed in him. So I became that person. We moved in together after 8 months. He was still in school. I was already working full-time, covered rent most months, groceries, utilities. He'd contribute when he could, but it was sporadic. He'd say things like, "Once I'm done with school, I'll take care of you," and I believed him. I wanted to believe him. When he got accepted into a graduate program, he was ecstatic. It was a good program, competitive, well-regarded, but expensive. He'd have to take out loans. A lot of them. He talked about it constantly, the weight of it, how it stressed him out, how he didn't know if it was worth it. I made the decision quietly. I started putting away extra money. Every overtime shift I could pick up, I took. I sold my car and started taking the bus. I stopped buying new clothes, stopped going out with friends, stopped doing anything that wasn't strictly necessary. I didn't tell him what I was doing. I wanted it to be a surprise. A gift. Proof that I was all in, that we were building something together. Took 18 months. $63,000. I paid it directly to the loan servicer. When the balance hit zero, I told him. He blinked at me. "Oh, that's wow. Thanks." That was it. No emotion. No gratitude that matched the weight of what I'd just done. Just a casual acknowledgement, like I'd picked up his dry cleaning. I waited for him to tell his parents. They'd been so proud when he got into the program, so worried about the debt. I thought he'd want them to know. I thought he'd want to share that relief. He didn't. When his mom mentioned the loans a few weeks later at dinner, he said, "Yeah, I worked really hard and managed to pay them off early." I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, waiting for him to correct himself. He didn't. I didn't say anything either. I told myself it didn't matter. That it wasn't about recognition. That I'd done it because I loved him, not because I wanted credit. But something inside me had shifted. I started noticing things. The way he'd leave his dishes in the sink for me to wash. The way he'd complain about being tired after a day of classes while I worked a 10-hour shift and then came home to cook dinner. The way he'd scroll on his phone while I talked about my day, nodding absently, never asking follow-up questions. The way he never seemed to see me. My grandmother died on a Tuesday. She'd raised me after my parents passed when I was 7. She was everything, my stability, my home, my proof that love could be steady and unconditional. When the hospital called to say she'd had a stroke, I dropped everything and drove 3 hours to be with her. She died the next morning. I held her hand. I signed the papers. I made the calls. I did everything alone because Daniel said he had a big presentation he couldn't miss. I drove home that night in a fog. I don't remember most of the drive. I just remember needing to be held. Needing to not be alone. When I walked into the apartment, Daniel was on the couch watching a basketball game. "Hey," he said, not looking up. "How'd it go?" "She's gone," I said. My voice cracked. "Oh, sorry." He glanced at me briefly, then back at the screen. "That sucks." I stood there, waiting for him to get up, to turn off the TV, to do something. He didn't. I walked to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed. I felt hollowed out, like something essential had been scooped out of me and I was just going through the motions of being a person. Daniel came in about 20 minutes later. He started getting ready for bed, brushing his teeth, changing into pajamas, setting his alarm. I looked at him. "Can you just hold me tonight? I really need." "I think you should sleep on the couch tonight," he said, cutting me off. "I need the whole bed. I've got an early class and I need good sleep." I stared at him. He wasn't joking. He climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and closed his eyes. I stood there for a long time. I don't know how long. Long enough that my legs started to ache. Long enough that the shock wore off and something colder settled in its place. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I walked out of the bedroom, grabbed a blanket from the closet, and lay down on the couch. And for the first time in 6 years, I saw him clearly. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the last 6 years in my head like a film I'd watched too many times to enjoy but couldn't stop analyzing. Every moment I'd justified. Every imbalance I'd explained away. Every time I told myself he was just stressed, just busy, just not good at expressing gratitude. I'd been lying to myself. And the worst part? I'd done it willingly. Enthusiastically, even. I'd convinced myself that love meant carrying the weight, that partnership meant making space for someone else's needs while quietly suffocating your own. When morning came, I got up before Daniel's alarm went off. I made coffee. I went to work. I answered emails and processed claims and smiled at my coworkers when they asked how I was doing. "Fine," I said. "Just tired." No one pushed. No one ever does. I didn't tell Daniel I was angry. I didn't tell him I was hurt. I didn't tell him anything at all. I just started watching. He came home that evening around 6, dropped his bag by the door, and went straight to the fridge. "What's for dinner?" he asked. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop. "I don't know." "What are you making?" He looked at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "I've got a ton of reading to do." "I thought you'd handle it." "I'm working," I said evenly. He frowned. "You're always working." "Yes," I said. "I am." He stood there for a moment, visibly annoyed, then sighed dramatically and ordered takeout on his phone. When the food arrived, he ate in front of the TV. He didn't offer me any. He didn't ask if I wanted anything. He just assumed I'd take care of myself, the same way I always had. I started keeping a mental list. Not out of spite. Not to weaponize later. Just to confirm what I already knew. He never asked about my grandmother's funeral. Never asked if I needed help with arrangements. Never acknowledged that I was grieving. He left his laundry in a pile by the hamper, not in it by it, and waited for me to wash it. He'd complain about his workload, his professors, his classmates, but the moment I mentioned my own stress, he'd zone out or change the subject. He talked about our future in abstract, glowing terms, travel, a house, maybe kids someday, but never once acknowledged what I'd already sacrificed to get him there. He was building his life on my back and calling it partnership. 3 weeks after my grandmother died, his mother called. "Elena, honey, how are you holding up?" I was surprised she'd called. Daniel hadn't mentioned telling her. "I'm managing," I said carefully. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Daniel told me. She sounded like a wonderful woman. So he had told her. He just hadn't bothered to check in with me himself. "Thank you," I said. There was a pause. Then she said, "I also wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For helping Daniel with his loans." He finally told us. I know he said he worked hard to pay them off, but between you and me, I know my son. He didn't do that alone. My chest tightened. He didn't tell you it was me? Another pause. Longer this time. No. He said he did it himself. But I've been his mother for 29 years. I know when he's glossing over details. I didn't know what to say. She sighed. You're a good woman, Elena. I hope he knows how lucky he is. When we hung up, I sat there holding my phone, staring at the wall. His own mother knew he was lying. And he didn't care. That night, Daniel came home in a good mood. He'd gotten an A on a paper he'd been stressing over. We should celebrate, he said. Let's go out to dinner. You're paying, I asked. He blinked. I figured we'd split it. You want to celebrate your accomplishment by splitting a bill? What's your problem? He said, his tone shifting. Nothing, I said. I'm just clarifying. You've been weird lately. Have I? Yeah. Distant. Cold. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the confusion on his face, the genuine lack of awareness. He had no idea. I'm fine, I said. He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Okay. Whatever. I'll just order pizza. I went to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed he'd kicked me out of, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg him to see me. I wasn't going to explain what he should already know. I wasn't going to teach a grown man how to be a decent partner. I was going to leave. But not yet. Not until I'd taken back everything I'd given him. I opened my laptop and started going through our finances. We didn't have joint accounts. I'd always kept mine separate, some instinct telling me not to fully merge, but I knew what I'd spent on him over the years. Rent I'd covered when he was short. Groceries. Utilities. Books. Conference fees. Application costs. The loans were the biggest chunk, but they weren't the only thing. I pulled up spreadsheets. Bank statements. Receipts I'd saved out of habit. Over 6 years, I'd given him nearly $90,000. $90,000. I sat there staring at the number, feeling sick. I'd funded his entire adult life while barely keeping my head above water. And he'd never once said thank you. I started planning. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my coworkers. Not even my grandmother's sister, who'd been checking in on me since the funeral. I just started moving pieces into place. I looked up tenant rights. Lease terms. How to break a lease without penalty. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and started funneling money into it. Not all at once, just small amounts, regular transfers, things he wouldn't notice. I stopped doing his laundry. Stopped cooking for him. Stopped asking about his day. He noticed, but only in the way you notice a convenience disappearing. Are you mad at me? He asked one night. No, I said. Then why are you being like this? Like what? I don't know. Different. I'm just tired, Daniel. He accepted that. He always accepted the easy answer. 2 months after my grandmother died, I found an apartment. A small 1-bedroom across town. Affordable. Clean. Mine. I put down the deposit. Signed the lease. Scheduled the movers. And I didn't tell him. I picked a Saturday. Daniel had a study group that morning. Something he'd committed to weeks ago, something he wouldn't skip because it made him look good being the dedicated one who showed up every week. I told him I had to work. He didn't question it. The movers arrived at 9. 3 guys with a truck, efficient and quiet. I'd already packed everything that mattered, my clothes, my books, my grandmother's photo albums, the few pieces of furniture I'd bought before we moved in together. Took 2 hours. By 11:30, the apartment looked like a stranger lived there. Everything left behind was his. The couch he'd picked out. The TV he'd insisted we needed. The kitchen table I'd never liked but had agreed to because he said it tied the room together. I walked through the empty rooms one last time. I felt nothing. No sadness. No regret. Just a quiet, settled clarity. I left my key on the counter. No note. No explanation. He didn't deserve one. I got to my new apartment just after noon. The movers helped me unload, and then it was just me standing in the middle of a space that was entirely mine. I sat down on the floor and cried. Not because I missed him, but because I was free. Daniel called me at 4:17. I was unpacking books when my phone buzzed. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. "Where are you?" His voice was tight, confused. "I moved out." Silence. "What?" "I moved out. I don't live there anymore." "What are you talking about?" "Your stuff is gone. All of it." "What the hell, Elena?" "I'm not doing this anymore," I said calmly. "Doing what? What is this? Are you breaking up with me?" "Yes." "Over the phone? Are you serious right now?" "I'm serious." "Why? What did I do?" I almost laughed. "You really don't know?" "No, I don't. Everything was fine. We were fine. We were never fine, Daniel. You just didn't notice because I did everything. This is insane. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this." "No, we don't. Elena, I paid off your loans. $63,000. You told your parents you did it yourself." Silence. "I covered your rent for 2 years. I bought your groceries. I paid for your books, your conference fees, your application costs. I gave you everything I had and you didn't even notice. I was going to pay you back." "When? After you finished school? After you got a job? After you finally decided I was worth thinking about?" "That's not fair. My grandmother died and you told me to sleep on the couch." His voice dropped. "I was tired. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. You meant exactly what you said. You needed the whole bed. You needed your sleep. You needed. It was always about what you needed." "So that's it? You're just done? After 6 years. I've been done for a while. I just didn't realize it until you made it clear that you'd rather have a good night's sleep than hold the person who paid for your entire future." He was quiet for a long moment. "Then, where does this leave us?" "It leaves you in an apartment you can't afford on your own. It leaves you with loans that are paid off because of me. It leaves you with a degree you wouldn't have without my money. And it leaves me finally able to breathe." "Elena." I hung up. He called 17 more times that night. I blocked his number. He showed up at my apartment 3 days later. I don't know how he found the address. Maybe he searched public records. Maybe he asked someone I knew. It didn't matter. I didn't open the door. He knocked. Called my name. Said he just wanted to talk. I sat on my couch, reading a book, and waited for him to leave. He did, eventually. He sent emails. Long, rambling things about how he didn't understand, how I was being unfair, how he always planned to appreciate me but he'd been so focused on school. I didn't respond. 2 weeks after I moved out, his mother called. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Elena," she said gently. "I heard." "I'm sorry," I said reflexively. "Don't be. I'm calling because I want you to know something." I waited. "I asked Daniel point blank if you paid off his loans. He lied to my face. Again. And when I told him I already knew the truth, he tried to minimize it. He said you helped a little, but that he did most of it himself." Closed my eyes. "I love my son," she continued. "But I'm not blind to who he is. And I'm so sorry that he made you feel invisible. Thank you, I whispered. You deserve someone who sees you, she said. Please don't settle for less. When we hung up, I cried again. But this time it felt different. Lighter. Daniel tried for another month. Messages from new numbers. Emails from different accounts. He even sent flowers to my office, cheap ones, the kind you grab at a grocery store. I threw them away. Eventually, he stopped. I heard through a mutual friend that he had to move back in with his parents. The apartment we'd shared was too expensive for him alone. He'd tried to find a roommate, but no one wanted to deal with his mess, his entitlement, his assumption that someone else would pick up the slack. He'd lost his free ride. And I'd gained my life back. 6 months after I left, I got a promotion. Nothing huge, but meaningful. A raise. A better title. Recognition for the work I'd been doing quietly for years. I celebrated by taking myself to dinner. Somewhere nice. Somewhere I would have suggested to Daniel a dozen times and he would have said was too expensive or not really his thing. I ordered wine. I ordered dessert. I left a generous tip. And I felt wealthy in a way that had nothing to do with money. I'm 32 now. I live alone. I have a savings account that's growing steadily. I have friends who check in on me, who remember my grandmother's birthday, who ask how I'm really doing and wait for the real answer. I don't date much. I'm not in a hurry. 'Cause I finally learned the difference between being alone and being unseen. Being alone is a choice. Peaceful one. Being unseen in a relationship is a slow death. I gave Daniel 6 years and $90,000. I gave him my energy, my care, my unwavering belief that he'd eventually see what I was worth. He never did. But I do now. And that's the only revenge I needed. Not his regret, not his apology, not his suffering. Just my freedom. And the quiet, unshakable knowledge that I will never again sleep on the couch in my own life.